Hello everybody. Oh, hello. There's people. Hiya. How have you got on with that? I'll pull up my Facebook page, and then if anyone would like to comment or ask any questions or show me a picture or something, then you can go to my Facebook page. Let's find the thread comment thing that I started earlier. Oh, the door is shut. Oh, more people coming. Hello. The door is shut. Whether my children are doing a poo or a wee or both is no longer my responsibility. Excellent. Right. I'll just put live now. There we go. I'm just going to the group as well because I think there was something in there. And then I'll spin you around and say hello and then we'll get started. Oh yeah, there we go. Right, let's do this. I've been, I don't know, I just feel like I've been talking about poo for the last 5 minutes, so I'm sure you've had time to get this done. I'll flip you around and say hello. And then I'll flip you back and we'll go through the answers. Ready? Let's go. Hello everybody, Lara here. This is Theatre of Science and this is Reproduction Lesson 5. You probably would be better off watching at least a couple of the previous lessons before you watch this one. There's a lot of words in this that you should have already heard. Okay, so we're doing about the menstrual cycle today. What happens when an egg comes out of the ovary and there is no sperm awaiting it? But I'm going to give you this little warm-up question that I've given you about puberty first, because that leads quite nicely into menstruation and the menstrual cycle. So here we are. If you had a bit of time to go through this, let's go through the answers, shall we? I'll get 2 different coloured pens. So, the menstrual cycle. Children have higher voices than adults. I mean, that's quite obvious. There's lots of differences. Changing from a child to an adult is called going through puberty. So I've given you loads of different changes here that happens to bodies and said, is it a change that might happen to a male body, a female body, or both, or neither? So let's go with the obvious ones first. Breasts develop. That generally only happens to female bodies. And hips getting wider. That's a female thing as well. Yeah, I felt like the voices might have foxed you. So, hair grows on face. That's generally thought to be a male thing. There we go. The voice gets suddenly lower. That's the male body. If you've heard of the term the voice breaking, like teenage boys sort of famously will be speaking and then occasionally get like a bit squeaky and then a bit lower. That's because very quickly the voice can become an octave lower, if you know about music. But actually female voices do get lower as well, but they get lower more gradually, so you're not so aware of it, and also not as low as well. Like a couple of notes. Is that nearly all of it? Hair grows in armpits. That's definitely both. And pubic hair grows is both. And hopefully you spotted the ones that have nothing to do. Becoming more nervous. I mean, it might be a bit nerve-wracking. I can see why you would think that. Like, there's obviously a lot of big changes happening here, but just bear in mind that all humans go through at least some of this stuff. You know, just talk about it. I've been getting a lot of messages from parents recently saying, thank you for talking about it. We need to keep talking about it. So just ask if you're not sure. And feet get bigger. I mean, obviously you do get bigger when you become an adult, but feet getting bigger is not specifically associated with puberty. So if you were answering like a GCSE biology question on this, don't say anything about those ones. Okay, right. Moving swiftly on. So, those changes, the sort of secondary changes of puberty, are caused by, all of puberty really is just caused by your body producing hormones. So I'll write them down. We'll just look at 2 hormones today. If you do biology GCSE, you learn about a couple more, but the main ones, the ones that people have heard of, are testosterone. testosterone, and estrogen, sometimes spelled with an O, but all the GCSEs I saw just spelled it with an E, so we'll do the same. Estrogen. There's a lot of myths surrounding these. If you've heard of the word testosterone, it might be because people tend to talk about testosterone being like the hormone that is like the male one, and it makes males feel really like angry, and it's a very macho hormone. This is not true. Testosterone is actually also contributes towards like healthy bones and healthy muscles, which obviously females have as well. So females do have testosterone, but about 1/10 of the amount that males do. And estrogen is kind of, again, thought of as the female hormone, but males do have some estrogen. It's actually estrogen that is one of the things that helps the sperm develop. But testosterone is the hormone that makes the sperm grow, that is like responsible for sperm. And estrogen is the hormone that is produced by the ovary that is sort of responsible for developing the eggs, or kind of partly in charge of the eggs. So that's why I suppose we think of testosterone as being male and estrogen as being female, because they are in charge of the associated sex cells, the sperm and the egg. But they also do a lot of other things. They're quite closely connected with your brain, as we'll see later. Yeah, so I learned some stuff about puberty, which I just thought was interesting, so I'm going to drop it in. Have a look at your arm. You notice your arm is covered in hairs, yeah? So the little kind of hole bit where the hair comes out, that's called a hair follicle. You know, humans have got the same amount of hair follicles as chimps. I did not know this. But obviously chimps have very thick, wiry hair all over their bodies, and we've got very thin, short hairs, so you can't tell. But female and male pubic hair, which grows around the like reproductive organs on the outside, that is obviously thick and wiry. But on chimps, it's fine, and we don't know why. We honestly don't know why. Maybe to keep those bits warm because they're sensitive. Don't know. Also, we don't really know why the male voice gets so low. But I've read a theory, there's loads of different theories, but the blog that I liked said it's like an advert for testosterone. So what the difference between like a male child and a male adult would be that the adult would be producing testosterone. So back in the day when humans didn't have like mobile phones or language, if a female met a male and the male had a very low voice, that was like an advert for the fact that it wasn't a child anymore, it was an adult. So they could reproduce together. So yeah, those are the hormones. But today is about the menstrual cycle, because it is estrogen, which is a hormone that is partly responsible for the menstrual cycle. Right. Can you sketch a female reproductive system by now, if you've seen the previous lessons? Could you? I feel like mine's getting better. You've got the little clouds, which are the ovaries, where the eggs develop. Careful, not where the eggs are made, because a female is born with all the eggs that they will have. But the eggs develop in the ovaries, and then one pops out every month, 3 either side, and travels through the oviduct, the egg tube, and gets to the uterus, this kind of triangular thing here, and then you've got the cervix underneath the uterus, which closes, keeps the baby in if a baby grows, the fetus I should say, and then you've got the vagina at the bottom. And we've been saying a little sperm arrive in the vagina and travel up. We looked at their very perilous journey. The sperm travel through the uterus, or the womb we could call it, and the egg pops out of the ovary and into the oviduct, and the sperm and the egg meet, and then that ball of cells like travels down to the uterus and embeds itself into the lining. Yeah, so the uterus lining is all thick and lovely and nutritious and plumped up and waiting for this little ball of cells to arrive. The ball of cell buries itself in and will stay there for like 9 months, growing into a human being. So what happens if there's no sperm in the equation? And there cannot possibly be sperm in the equation every time, can there? It would be like, imagine an oak tree where every single acorn on the oak tree landed in soil and grew another tree. It'd be impossible. It'd be terrible. There'd be an oak tree like right here in front of me. They'd be everywhere. So females release an egg every single month. Obviously, the vast majority of the time, they do not meet a sperm and grow into a person. That would be exhausting. So what happens? Well, the egg travels along the egg tube, gets to the uterus, comes out of the uterus, travels through the cervix, and out through the vagina, and comes out. And the uterus lining, the nice thick, plump uterus lining, which is really only there to receive this ball of cells which will grow into a new person, that's like, well, this is a waste of time. And the uterus lining comes out as well. And that's what you call menstruation. That's the period, the blood coming out of the female body, okay? That's the period. So I'm going to give you a sheet. which shows you sort of the story of the egg and the story of the uterus separately, and then afterwards we'll put them together. So here's a diagram. If you haven't been to a couple of lessons, you need some reminders. There we go. You've got the ovary with a little egg in it, the oviduct, the uterus, and then the cervix underneath and the vagina underneath. I've put the egg and uterus lining must coordinate their activities. This is like if a new person is to be made. So fill in the gaps to show what they do if the egg doesn't get fertilised. So we've got 2 lots of 4 boxes here. We've got the egg story and meanwhile what's happening in the same time in the uterus. So the first step of the egg story is that an egg is released from the ovary. And the first step in the story of the uterus is the uterus lining building up in anticipation. And then you've got 3 empty boxes next to each one. And you need to say to me, please, which phrase goes in which box. So egg doesn't implant in the uterus. Uterus lining breaks down, leaves body. Egg travels down oviduct. Egg leaves body. New egg develops in ovary. Egg doesn't implant in uterus. And uterus lining ready to receive egg. And if you've finished all those, write down your best guess for how long each stage lasts, please. I'll give you, I don't know, I'll give you 1 teacher minute, which just means when I feel like it's time to move on, we're going to move on. Oh. Who's this on Facebook? It's Russell! Ah, hi Russell. Nice. Oh, that's nice to know that I'm talking to Russell. It does make a difference. Right, Russell, have you finished? I'm just going to do the whole thing to you now, Russell. Have you finished that? I'll give you 10 more teacher seconds. No, real seconds. 9, 8, there we go. 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay, answers on the board. There you go. Did you get that? So the egg story is that an egg is released from the ovary, it travels down the oviduct, the egg doesn't implant, right, because it hasn't been fertilised, so the egg leaves the body and then a new egg develops and the whole thing starts again because that egg is released from the ovary and then travels the oviduct. Okay. Meanwhile, in the uterus lining builds up and then the uterus lining is ready to receive the egg and then, the egg doesn't implant in the lining of the uterus, so the uterus lining breaks down and leaves the body, and then it starts again. So the uterus lining breaking down and leaving the body, that lasts, well, the GCSE biology textbooks will tell you it lasts 5 days. People with female bodies might argue with that. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but about 5 days. And the whole cycle lasts about 28 days. Again, it could be more, it could be less. But this cycle is what we call the menstrual cycle. This is why people with female bodies, some of them have periods every month. Okay. Flipping around again. A little peep at my incredibly messy office there. It's my roundworm story time from Saturday. So, did you get all that? Let's put all that together into the sort of important bits that you need to know. So quite often, we're not all doing GCSEs, are we? But it's a good place to start. You quite often see little diagrams like this split into 28. Don't be counting these squares, okay? This is just rough. That'll do. So day 1 of the period, it doesn't make sense really in my head. Day 1 of the period is the first day that blood appears outside the body. It kind of feels like the start of the story is the egg leaving the ovary, but I guess person with a female body doesn't know about any of the other stuff that's happening, but obviously it is very clear when blood appears outside the body. So we say that is day 1 of the menstrual cycle. So I'll put blood appears. It sounds like more horrific than it is, but blood appears. So when you get any kind of little bit of blood outside the body, that's the first day of the period. I guess we'll put that it lasts for 5 days. So that is called, that bit there, the first 5 days where the bleeding is happening, that is called menstruation. Such a weird word. Menstruation. Be listening to Alphabet. And that's it. The period. Menstruation. And then the next important bit to think about, so after the uterus lining has left the body, pretty much straight away the uterus starts building up again, ready for the next big event. The uterus lining starts building up even before another egg is due. I'll put uterus lining building up. Uterus lining, it's building. And then day 14 is the other, if you're doing exams, the like important day to remember. Don't be counting my squares, but I'm going to put it here. Day 14 is when an egg does pop out of the ovary. So I'm making it sound like something out of the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Egg release, I'll put release, that's a much better word. Egg is released from the ovary. It's called ovulation. Ovulation. There we go. If you do not remember anything else in this lesson, remember that first day of the period is when the blood is seen for the first time, and day 14 is when an egg is released. Obviously in real life it's a bit blurry, but yeah, and that's it. So the egg is released, the egg travels down the oviduct, the egg tube, it gets to the uterus. If the egg had been fertilised, then that little ball of cells would then implant in the uterus lining. And we looked at last week how after about 10 days, a little sac called the amniotic sac forms around that little ball of cells, and you start calling the whole thing an embryo. But if that doesn't happen, because the embryo, actually it's really cool, the embryo sends off a bit of hormone itself. It kind of sends a signal to the body to go, I'm here, you're pregnant now, deal with that. So if the body doesn't receive this signal from that little embryo, then that's when the lining of the uterus breaks down and comes out, and we started again. Right, I'm very proud of this. I'm going to show you my analogy. Let's get rid of this. I'm going to show you my analogy, a little story that I've written, and I'd like you to tell me which parts of my story relate to which parts of the menstrual cycle. If you can do this, you have definitely understood the menstrual cycle very well. Here we are. So don't forget, menstruation is the actual bleeding. The menstrual cycle is this whole thing from like day 1 to day 28. Right. When I did these questions live with comments, I've collected some names of celebrities that I'm going to use to sound like I know what I'm talking about. A posh hotel has one bed. It receives a phone call saying that a celebrity wants to come and stay. We're going to say that the celebrity is Zendaya, because she was cool. So I've looked up all these cool celebrities that you told me about on Facebook and on YouTube, and I think Zendaya's one of my favourites. She's actually she's playing MJ, and she's like properly dating Spider-Man. Anyway, so a posh hotel has one bed. It receives a phone call saying that Zendaya is coming to stay. So the staff prepare a comfy bed. Zendaya sets off for the hotel in a limo, and the staff are getting ready. They're putting the final touches in, arranging some chocolates on the pillow and some fresh flowers. So Zendaya gets to the hotel, walks straight through the hotel, doesn't stay. But elsewhere, Elon Musk was another person that came up. Elsewhere, Elon Musk, he's going to put like 1 million people on Mars or something in 100 years. He's planning a trip. So the staff, they're so sad, nosing Zendaya, so they throw the flowers and the chocolates away and remove the sheets. But a few days later, they get a phone call to say, yay, Elon Musk wants to come and stay at their hotel. Right. Have you got all that? Can you please tell me, in my amazing analogy for the menstrual cycle, which might be one part and might be more parts than one, which part of the story represents the egg, which represents the uterus, what represents ovulation, that's the egg coming out the ovary, which bit is the uterus lining building up, which bit is the egg not implanting, and which bit is menstruation. So menstruation is the uterus lining leaving the body. Cool, so I've kind of levelled these questions. I think question 1 is the easiest one. Obviously it depends what level you're at or how old you are. You can just pick out some bits if you're not sure. Question 2 is a bit harder. Which parts of the story are day 1 of the menstrual cycle? And which part is day 14? And the hardest one, but a great way to check if you've understood, write your own analogy. I thought you could set it in a restaurant, set it anywhere you like. I want some period analogies, please. You know where my Facebook group page is. Go and post them on there for me. I'll give you a couple of minutes. No, not a couple of minutes. I'll give you 1 minute. Oh, a message from Russell saying done. Oh, that's good. Well, that was 7 minutes ago, so I'm hoping you haven't done this bit, Russell. Ovulation, it's just the way we feel. I'll give you 20 seconds and then I'll start going through it. Because this is staying up on YouTube, so you can always watch it back, can't you, and pause it and things. Well, I'm just glad they're having fun, you know? At least they're not knocking on my office door. What could they possibly be doing? Okay, let's go through those answers and try and drown out my family. Which part of the story represents the egg? It is Zendaya. You're welcome, Zendaya, if you're watching this. Zendaya is the egg. And the uterus is the hotel. Oh yes, sorry, that's not very clear. So the egg is Zendaya. So the egg is thinking about coming to stay in the uterus, but it's still in the ovary. Zendaya is thinking about coming to the hotel. Actually, if you want to go into a bit more detail, estrogen, that hormone that we were talking about, that's kind of the phone call. So while the egg is developing inside the ovary produces estrogen, which sort of tells the uterus, hey up, there's an egg coming soon, get yourself ready. Ovulation, the egg leaving the ovary, that is the celebrity setting off for the hotel. So careful. Ovulation is the celebrity actually like leaving her house or whatever. That's the egg leaving the ovary. The uterus lining building up. Well, I was trying to show you that the uterus lining actually builds up for quite a long period of time. So the staff preparing a comfy bed while the egg is still in the ovary, you know what I mean. That's the uterus lining building up. But while the egg is travelling like through the oviduct and getting to the ovary, the uterus lining is still building up. So the answer for that one was the staff preparing the bed and the chocolates and the flowers. But like finally, just as the celebrity arrives, the hotel is ready. Just as the egg arrives, the uterus lining is fabulous and moist and cosy and all ready, but the egg doesn't stay. The egg doesn't implant, the celebrity doesn't visit. So 5 is E. And menstruation, the uterus lining leaving the body, that would be the staff throwing away the flowers and the chocolates. I guess it's like someone passing by the hotel and seeing staff dumping flowers and chocolates in the bin. Yeah, right? That's a good analogy, because the hotel is the uterus, so you can't see the uterus, but you can see the... Yeah, I'm really happy with this analogy. Did I mention that? And then the phone call is a new egg developing and the whole thing starts again. Okay. Which parts of the story are day 1 of the menstrual cycle? So day 1 is when the blood is first seen, the blood first starts to come out. So that would be the staff throwing away the chocolates and the flowers. And day 14 is ovulation, yeah? The egg popping out of the ovary. So that's 3. That's Zendaya leaving her house for the hotel. Whew. Couple of things to say there. The first one is, now's quite a good, some people were talking about whether the uterus could be like the bed or the sheets. An important thing to note if you are thinking about doing this for GCSE is don't say wall of the uterus. Do not say the wall of the uterus, okay? Females need the uterine wall uterus, yeah. Females need the wall of the uterus at all times. What comes out is just the lining of the uterus. In the same way that the staff wouldn't like throw the bed away or the whole hotel. It would just be the sheets and the flowers, the only bit that gets replaced. There's something else I was going to say there. I'm sure it'll come back to me. No. I think that's all fine. Alright, let's go. Flip you around again. So well done if you did that, and yeah, oh please, 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 if you've got an analogy, please post it on my in my Facebook group. People are asking when this happens, so it's kind of like asking how tall is a person. And probably if you were asked how tall are human beings, you would say like, oh, 5 to 6 foot, but obviously there are 4-foot people and 7-foot people who would be quite crossy for you. It's the same. Puberty sort of generally happens between the ages of about 10 and 16. Again, if you like, you're answering the exam question, but it can be much earlier, it can be much later, and that wouldn't be anything to worry about. Right, that is pretty much the end of the lesson. I'm going to do you my ad to tell you how I do this for free, and then I'll do you some GCSE questions, real life GCSE questions, so you can test how much you know. Some of them are hard today. And then I'm going to tell you, if you're watching live or in like the few days after this was recorded, about a giveaway that I'm doing, and we'll talk a little about the products that you can use to catch periods. Okay, so first of all, very quickly, how I can do this for free. It started off for fun during lockdown, but now it's my actual job, because some people are paying me with a small amount of money per month. So like, obviously if I was doing it on Zoom to lots of people, I would have to be charging a lot, or like private tutoring. I don't really want to do that. This is more fun. So how it works is, people who can and want to, go to my Facebook homepage, or I think there's a link on my YouTube channel as well, and click sign up. It takes you to this website called Coffee, where you can support me with like £5 or £6 a month, and you receive Theatre of Science magazine to say thank you so much. It's very good, but it's also quite sporadic. On average, it comes every 2 months. So this was the last one that just came out on colour. It's got a comic strip about Monet and how he had a superpower that he was not very happy with. It's got ideas for activities that I really like, but I can't do in my shows for various reasons. It's got a real bombshell about the primary colours and quizzes. Yeah, so I'm writing at the moment the issue on pirates, which I'm very excited about. So thank you very much everyone who signed up. It usually comes with some kind of terrible free gift, like literally biodegradable plastic bags and blotting paper have been previous free gifts. This one comes with a Newton's colour wheel, which is actually a good thing. All right. That's it. Thank you so much for everyone who's supporting me with money so that this can be my job, and I can spend time away from my family justifiably. And thank you very much to everyone who's just liking. I really appreciate that, and all the comments. Let's see how you get on at GCSE. She says, frantically looking around and realising that I cannot find my GCSE questions. I'll print another one out totally seamlessly. You won't even notice. You see how much you're not noticing? It's like, yeah, we're going to go for the GCSE questions in a minute. Anytime now. I will say that the reason we do these GCSE questions, you know this already, it's not to see how much you get right or to see how clever you are. It's purely so that we can start thinking about how GCSE questions work. Because sometimes it really does feel like they're trying to trick you. There's a very particular way of answering them to make sure you've got the right marks, and there's things to look out for. So here we go. I can definitely say that I wouldn't have got 4 marks on this. Might not have got half marks. The diagram shows the female reproductive system. Can you label the parts X, Y and Z? 3 marks. What gift. So you've got a little cloud here labelled X. Coming off it is an oviduct with an egg, or an ovum, posh word for egg cell, in the oviduct. And that leads to a thing called Y. Underneath Y you've got the cervix, and underneath the cervix you've got a thing called Z. So, label those parts for me. And then, this is the bit I did not do well on. Describe and explain 2 ways in which this diagram would look different on day 1 of the menstrual cycle. So, it doesn't show it very clearly here, but the lining of the uterus should be very thick in the diagram that you're looking at, okay? So you've got an egg in the oviduct, you've got a big thick lining of the uterus. If it was day 1 of the menstrual cycle, how would that diagram be different? I'll give you a clue. I didn't get many marks because I didn't read the question properly. I didn't see that it said describe and explain. So tell me 2 ways that the diagram would be different, and then explain why. Just like 1 sentence will be fine. Why does it look different? And this diagram, which has also come out horribly, my apologies, there's a circle here with numbers around it. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 are labelled A, and then numbers 11 to 13 are labelled B, number 14 is labelled C, and 16 round to 28 is labelled D. So which letter, which letter does menstruation occur? Beg your pardon. Right, on which part, A, B, C or D, does menstruation occur? And the summary questions, which are not GCSE questions, I just think you should be able to do it after this lesson. Can you tell me what it means when a person has a period? Can you use the words uterus lining, egg, fertilised and breaks down? And how often does the menstrual cycle actually happen? Well, Russell, surely you've got that done by now. I feel like I've been going on for ages. Let's see if I've got any comments while you're just cracking on like that. Good, there we go. How are you doing? I'll give you 5 more seconds. That's a bit brutal, isn't it? It's on YouTube. You can just pause it. Let's go through the answers. Well, I'm hoping you got these. If you've come to any of the previous lessons, then I think this was a bit of a gift here. X is an ovary. And obviously the oviduct is labelled egg in the oviduct. Y is the uterus. Or you could have had womb, that would be absolutely fine. And underneath the cervix is the vagina, so Z is the vagina. Well done if you got those. Describe and explain 2 ways the diagram would look different. Well, first of all, you have to know what day 1 of the menstrual cycle is. So that's the lining of the uterus breaking down and coming out. So the egg in this situation is going to travel to the uterus. It's not going to implant, the egg's going to pass out of the vagina and the lining of the uterus is going to do the same, and that'll be day 1. So the first difference is that in the diagram on that day, there would be no egg. So if you put no egg, well done, you've just got 1 mark at GCSE. The bit I didn't do is explain why. Why is there no egg? Well, don't think too much about it. The correct answer was something like, it's still in the ovary. Still in ovary, or hasn't been released yet, or something like that. Anything that showed that you understood that the egg wasn't in the egg was still in the ovary was fine. And the second one is that the lining of the uterus would be thinner. Lining of uterus. You could have had lining of womb. Thinner. Sometimes in exam questions, on the mark scheme, they underline words to say you have to have written that word to get the mark, and they've done that here with lining. If you wrote wall, it was just nothing, they just burned your exam paper, but you had to write lining to get 1 mark. So if you put anything about the lining of the uterus would be like thinner, or I don't know, less thick, then you got 1 mark. I suspect you couldn't say lining of the uterus not there, because there will be some linings, just not as thick. And the explanation would be because it's broken down. It's broken down, it's breaking down, it's leaving the body, anything like that. Well done. Which part of this cycle shows menstruation occurring? It's A, because menstruation is the period actually happening, blood. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. I keep saying period blood. Obviously it's not like the blood in your veins. It's like watered down blood. It's lining of the uterus and a bit of blood. We've looked at in previous lessons how the cervix is quite mucousy and there's some acid in the vagina. So it's a whole mixture of stuff really, but we'll say period blood for now. So the number 2, the answer was A. What does it mean when a person has a period? I'm not going to write that down. I feel like hopefully you just kind of linked these words together. So it's if a person has an egg like released from the ovary and it's not fertilised, then the uterus lining breaks down. And how often does the menstrual cycle happen? Well, it's different for everyone, but 28 days is the standard answer. Oh, there we go. Right, you got all that? Shall I flip you around again? Yeah. Hello. So that is pretty much the end of the lesson. If you've got anything left in you, what I'd like you to do is design something right now, literally 30 seconds, the time it takes me to draw out the female reproductive system again. Can you draw a design for what you think might be a good way of catching the period blood, the menstruation? Catching menstruation? What would be a good way of catching it? Like, are you going to put something inside the body? Are you going to have something outside the body? What are the problems that you might have to think about, that you're going to have to deal with? You might have some in front of you, you might have brought some along, or you might already know the answer. But don't necessarily rely on that, because when I and a lot of your adults were learning about this stuff in the 90s, we were told certain answers that are definitely not the best answers now. Maybe invent something even better. Come on. Design something. Is it going to be inside the body or outside the body, first of all? And why? Why would one of those be a better solution than the other? What are the other problems that you need to solve? Here we are. Have you done it? I'll tell you a problem that you don't need to solve, that a lot of people who make period products, a lot of the companies would tell you that you need to solve, is smell. Period products are always going on about how they can like solve the smell problem. There is no smell problem, all right? We've done a lot of shows now about burps and farts and poo. When have you ever walked into a room and thought, oh, someone's on the first day of their menstrual cycle? Never. It's just not an issue. As long as people change their sanitary products regularly, there is no smell. Obviously, if, like any blood, if it's outside the body for quite a long time, then it would start to kind of like decompose, break down, and smell. But apart from that, generally, don't worry about solving that problem. So, one of the solutions that the world has provided to periods is this little thing here. I don't have one because I wasn't going to buy them for this show, but they're called tampons, and it's basically just a kind of very tightly packed little cylinder of cotton wool on the end of a string. In the 90s, this was one of the only things we had. The tampon goes inside the vagina and the string hangs out the outside, and when it's soaked up as much lining of the uterus and blood as it can, then the string is pulled and it comes out and it gets swapped over. The main reason that tampons are not the best solution is because they're horrible for the environment. They stick around for ages. People get flushing them down the toilet even though you're not supposed to. And we've looked at before, even if you put stuff in the bin, eventually it goes to landfill, it can not break down for a really long time, or chemicals from it could leach out and damage the oceans. It's not the best idea. Tampons companies will tell you that they're solving the smell problem, which we've seen is not a thing. And they do help you, I suppose, to move around more. This is the big thing. Like, tampon companies would say that people with female bodies can still like climb mountains and, I don't know, build tree houses or whatever, because the vagina doesn't, people don't feel anything when the tampon is in their vagina. Right, the sort of more modern day solution to this issue is something called a moon cup, which it looks like this. It's basically a reusable tampon. It's made out of silicone. It's got a long bit of silicone down here, which people cut off to suit them, and it sits inside, so it collects the menstrual blood and then is pulled out. Moon cups and tampons are both, I almost don't want to say it because I don't want to freak you out, because it's such a rare thing. But if you search for these online, then what might come up is something called toxic shock syndrome, which happens to like less than 1 in 100,000 people. But humans have bacteria in their noses and their ears all the time. But when this certain strain of bacteria get into the vagina, during the first stages of the menstruation, the vagina is very moist and warm. So it's a place that bacteria like. If this certain strain of bacteria builds up, which only happens if there's a sanitary product inside generally, then it can cause toxic shock syndrome. So like vomiting, very high fever, I think diarrhea, all kinds of badness associated with toxic shock syndrome. Like I say, it's extremely rare. I think probably one of the reasons that we hear about it all the time is because it's talked about a lot by the makers of sanitary towels. As a way of telling you that you shouldn't use tampons and moon cups, you should use sanitary towels instead. So sanitary towels sit outside the vagina. I have one here. I will show you. Here it is. Oh, it stinks. This is one of the ones that's all like smelly to cure the problem of the smell, but you unfold it and you peel off the back and it's got a sticky back which gets pressed into the pants, and then it's got sticky wings as well which get folded underneath the pants. There you go, and it just sits like that. Yeah, obviously they're horrible for the environment. Look at them, they're totally covered it. They're just plastic. And people change them like, what, every kind of 3 to 5 hours. So the loads of them is like nappies. They're not a good solution. This is why I get to the giveaway bit that I want to tell you about. Because wonderful companies have sent me loads of free reusable sanitary towels. So a company called Baby Purr, the little elephant, you might have heard of them if you've had babies. They make these gorgeous reusable ones, which are very similar to the sanitary towel that we know from the 90s, but they're so soft and they're so pretty. There's a waterproof layer on the outside, obviously, so that the period blood doesn't go through the pants, and an absorbent layer on the top, and instead of stickiness, it just gets poppered around the pants like that. Genius. So I have loads of 4 lovely ones from Baby Purr. This other wonderful company called Floating Lotus have sent me these little guys, which are the same. They all like just pop, I don't know, I'm just totally in love with these. They're gorgeous. And they also sent me this little bag, which is waterproof, so females who have periods would put like a dirty one in one pocket, a clean one in the other pocket, and so on throughout the day. And the thing that's blown, like any adult who watches my shows, mind has been blown by these period pants. We all want to try them, but none of us have. But apparently kids know all about it. They're period pants. It's like a reusable sanitary towel, but it's just inside the pants. And females with periods just wear them all day, and they just collect the blood. It is only about, like, throughout the whole period, I think it's like 6 teaspoons of blood or something. So we're not talking about a lot. Yeah, apparently they work. So there's a post on my Facebook page at the moment where you just comment, and if you support me on Coffee or Patreon, then I already have your address. So if you write me a comment, I'll be posting you something quite soon anyway, hopefully. So if you'd like to be in the chance, I'll just mark the envelopes, and I'll just stick these things in the envelopes at random, the people who have shown an interest, until they are all gone. As a reward for watching my shows and supporting me. Thank you very much. Right, that's definitely it now. I've showed you all my cool free reusable stuff. Oh yeah, this is like a mini sanitary towel. It's called a panty liner. It's for like the beginning or the very end of the period, I guess. That's it. That's all from me. Next week, we will be learning about asexual reproduction. So how things reproduce when there are no sperm and no eggs involved, and what's good and what's bad about just making like a complete identical copy of yourself. And in the show, doing pine trees this Saturday, if you're watching live, and Monday. If you want to bring some pine cones with you to my Facebook page, then we can talk about pine trees, Christmas trees, what's the difference between a pine and a fir and a spruce, all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See you soon. Bye.